Welcome to Call Me Or Crazy. I'm Kiana Lambert, and tonight we are going to talk about death and the simulation. For those of you who are new to simulation theory, you can look up Dr. Donald Hoffman and Harvard and see what's going on with that. And it goes in line with what I saw in my near-death experience, and this is how I understand it to work. So, the information that I get is from my near-death experiences, doing research on near-death experiences, and pattern recognition, and the research that I've done since then on various different things, and what I know of quantum physics and electromagnetism and the universe. So, the way that it works is the universe is always a macrocosm of a microcosm and vice versa. And the universe is made from electromagnetic energy, which requires polarity, which is positive and negative. That means that everything that we experience in the simulation is all based on a spectrum of polarity. You have light and dark, wrong, right, left, right, black, white, X, Y, male, female. It is all a spectrum of polarity. And consciousness, which is us, wants to experience every single thing that it can. And death is part of what it wants to experience. Death is a polarity, and life is the other end of that polarity spectrum. So consciousness, your consciousness, you, wants to have the experience of the life that you are having and the death that corresponds to it. Because that is how it works. Everything is polarity, and it needs to experience all of it to evolve. Now, the way that it works is you are not remembering anything right now because you are in your body. And in order to have an experience, you cannot remember. Because if you already knew what was going to happen, remembered who you are, remembered your previous history and lives or whatever else, you would not have the same experience. You need to have it like it's fresh, like it's new. And here's something that you need to consider. It is fresh and new because there is no time. So people think of reincarnation and all this stuff, and what they're thinking of is the way that your consciousness moves from experience to experience. But literally, there is no time. So what you experience linearly is something that goes along with the experience so that you can have it. You can have that experience, because without time, and nothing would make any sense. There would be no cause and effect because there would be no time to show effect. Everything would happen simultaneously. So literally, outside of your linear experience, there's no time. So everything is fresh. It is all happening at once. And the theology of death and reincarnation and all those things came from the knowing that you are consciousness and you are going to experience everything as you evolve. And consciousness is electricity, it's light, and it wants to experience itself as matter. So it's split into everything, which this is what I saw in my near-death experience. I split. It was me. I was watching it take place, and I knew it was me, splitting into everything, becoming everything, so that I could experience it. And a really good way to think of it is that you de-evolve so that you can re-evolve back into yourself. And it's all electromagnetic energy that corresponds to the quantum unified field of energy. And that houses every single possibility that could ever be or that ever will be in existence in its energy. That's the simulation. So when you start your experience, which start is only a reference to give you a linear idea so that you can wrap your mind around it, but really there is no beginning and there is no end. Because you are the beginning and you are the end. So there is nothing outside of yourself. But in order to wrap your mind around it linearly, think of it as starting the game. The game never ends because you are going to experience every single possibility for infinity. Because it's all possible and you want to experience every single thing. So your death experience is going to correspond to your life experience, and then you will move on to another life. Now, where you move on to depends on your level of evolution, your level of consciousness. You may not have a human life in the next life, because if you need to learn something, or if you need to learn something from a different perspective, you may go and experience life as something completely different, because it all lends to your consciousness. And here's what happens. Eventually, you get to the point of consciousness where I am, where you know that you are the creator, you know that you are consciousness having a human experience. And then whenever I have my death experience, I will choose where I want to go next. So when you get to a certain level of consciousness, when you have the death experience, it corresponds to that life, okay? So whatever you believe in your life, as far as death goes, is what you're going to experience. So I have consciously awoken to the fact that we are all creators, creating our reality. Some are doing it unconsciously, and others, like me, are doing it consciously. So my death experience is going to be that I get to choose wherever I want to go next, because I know I'm creating everything. And I get to decide what I want to experience next. And if you believe anything, like some people have recollections and memories like, oh, I know that I die, I go into this place, and then they ask me what I want to do next, and then I choose what I want to do next, and then I go and do that. So that's going to be the experience that they have when they die. They're going to go back to that place, and this is still consciousness creating this. It's just a different level of the simulation. You're going to go to this place that you created for yourself so that you can say, okay, what do I want to experience next time? Because they're parameters for your consciousness in order for your consciousness to create the next experience. So whenever you die, your data upload from your body, your energy leaves your body, and that contains all the data and all the information that you have accumulated in this lifetime. And for lack of a better term, it sort of gets uploaded into the cloud, which would be the quantum unified field. And that's your consciousness, and you just had that experience. And then you can decide, oh, what do I want to experience next? When you understand everything, and this is what happened to me whenever I died, I understood. The knowing comes, the understanding comes, and then you can just choose what you want to do next. I can recollect, and I have memory of being other beings, other people, other places, other things, and it's all housed in me. If you took my DNA and stretched it, it would stretch to the sun and back. What I think research shows like 100 times. Why do you think your DNA stretches that long? Because it houses every single bit of information that has ever been in your DNA. Because you were quantumly entangled with the earth, which is what you were born from. And you're born from that because your parents ate food that was grown from the earth, animals that ate the food that were grown from the earth. So you have it in you. Everything is quantumly entangled because it's the same electron and it's the same photon vibrating at a different rate in order to create everything that we experience. The body is what limits the frequency, and it's what limits knowing. And that also accumulates frequency as it experiences a linear trajectory in life. So if it resonates with you, if this resonates with you, then you are on your way, and you are well on your way towards this knowing and towards this experience that you can have afterwards. Because if it wasn't at your level of consciousness, if your level of consciousness wasn't at a point where you could reach this, or you wouldn't even understand it, it wouldn't even come up for you, you wouldn't even be in this circle. because everything is resonance and it magnetizes to who it needs to go to. So if you're listening to this and you are concerned about death, don't be. It's an experience that you will have. And you have to treat it as both serious and reverent, and have reverence for it, because you need to hold both polarities. And then you also need to not be afraid of it, because that is the other end of the spectrum of the polarity, and you have to be able to hold both. So do not be afraid of it. The most peace comes over you, okay? And this has happened to me twice, where I've gone into the void and I've recognized myself. And then I had a near-drowning experience this past Friday. And I remembered again, the peace that comes over you before you go is amazing, okay? You do not have to worry about it. Your human body will flood itself with hormones. You will not feel it. And you don't have to worry about what the next life is going to be, because you do not remember. And it's purposeful so that you can have the experience that you need in order to evolve. And it doesn't feel very comforting. And what is happening to you right now is you are meeting the idea of the end. And it's messing with your nervous system, because your nervous system is your reptilian mammalian brain that's there to keep you alive. So the idea of death, it doesn't feel safe. So you have to remember that you are consciousness having an experience. And the reason that this is so important is because it gives your life more zest. It gives you the power to consciously create by noticing your patterns, becoming aware of those patterns, and then making an active choice to not continue those patterns. It also gives you a chance to feel more deeply, because as you start to heal your wounds, as you start to take action and get triggered by different things that come up for you and you release them, the amazing euphoric feeling that comes over you from healing is like nothing you'll ever experience. Choosing happiness and walking towards that, because you know it's a choice now. You know that you create everything, and so you start actually playing with parameters and beliefs and how you want to create this and what do you want to do and how you want to move forward. And life becomes a focus of energy on how to play the game instead of surviving it. So the whole purpose of death is life, is to give your life meaning. And here's a little fun thing. You know, Methuselah was like supposed to be the longest living person, and then the people lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Let me tell you something. And I'm going to speak French here for a minute, so you're going to have to excuse me. Motherfuckers got bored, okay? I mean, back then, every single human age has had a different thing that is associated with it. So right now we are using gravity. Those laws and those ideas were different because the collective consciousness of people was different. So the technology was different. Even though it still exists, we just don't have the awareness of it like they did back then. But can you imagine living for that long? The ones that lived for that long started playing this whole thing, started manipulating this whole human experience, and started this game on this level. Oh yeah, this is a level game of the level. There is no beginning and there's no end, because it's all recursive and it's all a loop. And I know that's hard to understand. But basically, this is one level of many, of many. And it all feeds back into itself. So humans were created by what they call extraterrestrial or whatever aliens. On the History Channel, they call it something, ancient alien theory or whatever. So those people made humans on this level of the game, but humans evolved into them. I know, there is no time, so everything is cattywampus, but you gotta hold it. You gotta hold them both. So back to the living forever. Motherfuckers got bored. There was just, at some point, like, what do you do? And here's what you should also know. As you progress through levels of the simulation and humanity evolves, death becomes optional, because this is very well known. This is very well practiced. People get to choose when they move on. They get tired of the game they're playing, the life that they're having, and the embodiment that they're in, and they just move on. They decide, and it's actually celebrated in some cultures, in different species. It's celebrated, and they celebrate the passing of life. And then they know that your energy moves on to another one. So you can choose where you want to go next and what experience you want to have next. And living forever would mean that you couldn't have those experiences of doing something else, of being something else, and actually getting to experience different things that happen as far as the evolution of consciousness, because it's simulated. It's all algorithmic and evolutionary and self-propelling. So you wouldn't have any of those experiences if you lived forever. And when they changed the DNA of human beings and cut short their lifespan, it wasn't for control. And people that are conspiracy theorists can say, yes, it is. And that is one way to look at it. And in that reality, then yes, it would be for control, according to you and the reality that you're experiencing. But for me, it was never about control. It was about making things sweeter. It was about giving life more meaning, because it was shorter and there was less time to do things in. So by making it shorter, you could have more lives and experience more and do more and have more people to interact with. When humans were first made, they didn't start really building anything. Everything was based on scarcity, right? So there wasn't a whole lot of building and interaction going on. It takes more human lives and more separation of consciousness and different human lives to build stuff. If we didn't have John D. Rockefeller, we wouldn't have some of these other things that we have now. Everything builds on itself. It's all evolving all the time. So do not worry about death. It makes your life sweeter. Your focus needs to be on your life now and what you can do with it and how you can feel the most and how you can have the most experiences and create the most happiness, joy, fulfillment, and everything for yourself by following your passions. And if you're listening to this, that means that it's for you, because you wouldn't even hear me, you wouldn't understand a word I said, and you may still not understand a word I'm saying, but if you understand part of it, you're well on your way. And knowing and actually being interested in death is a pathway for you, because you're going to be interested in death. You're going to be listening to this, and then you're going to discover that there is no death, which is also going to give you more propelling energy to live life more fully as a conscious creator. So you have purpose in imagining death and wanting to know about death, because in your journey to discover it, you will discover that there's death, but there's only death to make life more meaningful. And then when you accept that, then you can start creating the life that you want and really living consciously and learning and growing. And once you really get in there, I promise you, once you get in there and you are creating life and you are seeing how your wounds do this and how it affects your health and how it does this and how it does that, and you're trying to play the game and juggle it, life becomes more amazing, more fulfilling. And honestly, I went from not wanting to stay because I came from so much trauma to actually being like, I can see why I would come back to do other things. We all hate Elon Musk, but he's doing something, and maybe somebody at some point wants to experience what it would be like to be him. And so you can jump into that consciousness and experience that immediately afterwards. And from my perspective, in this human perspective, and what I have, I don't want to experience that. I'd rather do something else. But at the same time, there's other things that I would want to experience. I mean, people make up their own realities and crazy stuff gets created. Shadow organizations, different things, conspiracy theories, all this stuff is so much fun. There's so much to create. There's so much to experience. And I'm not going to be able to experience all that as me. So yeah. It would be great to be able to come back and to experience something else. But here's the caveat. You can't remember in order to have the experience. But then there's also another caveat. Once you get to this level of consciousness, it's almost like you're sleeping. So there's part of your consciousness that's sleeping. And I know this because I've been very self-aware since very, very young. Since even before my near-death experience in the back of the box truck where I suffocated. But I was probably around 3 years old then, but I have memories younger than that. And it seemed like I was watching my life unfold, kind of in like a sleepy, half-awake state, where I was just watching it. And you want this, and if you have this, it's because you are really far advanced in your level of consciousness. But you want to be able to be behind the veil and kind of be in that sleepy level of awareness of watching your life unfold, because to be awake, now this has happened, consciousness is going to experience every single possibility. So imagine being in the womb, knowing that you are consciousness, that you are everything, but having zero control. You have to sit in that body as it's developing, as it's growing, and then have the birth experience, and then not be able to move or articulate or understand people or speak, or understanding them but not being able to speak. So can you imagine your level of consciousness being that high and trapped in a body? No, it's torture. It's absolute torture. So you want to have the amnesia that happens whenever you're reborn. And I know how all this sounds. It sounds batshit. I'm well aware. But it is what it is. You're either going to get it or you're not. And every single thing that I'm saying is based on what I know. So this is not based on other people's teachings. It's based on pattern recognition and things that I have from my near-death experience. A lot of people will come at me and be like, oh, so-and-so already said this, so-and-so already said that, so-and-so already said that. And I'm like, I have no idea who those people are, but it's not wrong, because if you are tuned in to yourself, you have access to the quantum unified field. There is no time. Everything's happening all at once. So if you get to that level of consciousness, you are aware and you have access to it. I'm not the only one who's gotten here. We're all just giving back to humanity so that we can propel its consciousness, because that is the game. That's what we're experiencing. So, to recap, if you are thinking about death right now, it's because you are on your way in a journey to discover that there is no death. And in that journey, you're going to discover your consciousness. And then you will become a conscious creator. And then when you die, you won't have the tunnel, you're not going to have the family, you're going to have whatever you believed in this life. And that is going to allow you to choose wherever you want to go next. And however you simulate it after you die, if you go into a waiting room, if you go into clouds and somebody's sitting behind a cloud desk asking you where you want to go next, you simulate everything, you create everything. So go live your life. That's the whole purpose of being interested in death. And now you know, there is no death. You're going to experience it as part of the life that you led, because that's what consciousness needs to experience. We live in a world of opposites and polarity, and you have to experience life and the corresponding death with it. And what you believe is what determines what you experience afterwards. And it changes every time, because you gain more experience, more access to your consciousness, and then what you want changes. You don't go into the same waiting room afterwards. You may decide that you want to end up on a beach somewhere and then talking to somebody from your past about what you want to do in the next time. Literally, there is zero things that are impossible. It's all possible. And that's why when people are like, oh, why is all this happening? Because everything is possible, and it all needs to be experienced. So that's why it's happening. And It's part of the evolutionary process. It doesn't feel good, but it's part of the negative polarity that accompanies the positive one. And in the future, it doesn't happen. And this is something else that you should know. When you choose a different life as a different species in an advanced human civilization, they don't experience what we experience, okay? In advanced civilizations, they know this. They know that we're all the same. They know it's consciousness. There is no fighting. There is no war. There's responsibility because people are very self-aware that they are all consciousness. So they like reincarnating here because that is also an option in the quantum unified field. People, it can come back here. It's part of their whole simulated game. They can incarnate into a body here to experience negative polarity. Yes, because they have experienced life in a civilization where they have nothing to want for. Everything's peaceful. There's no danger, but there's also no adrenaline, right? There's also no risk. So they come here, which is just another part of you and your consciousness and the evolution, and it's chosen to come here after that life to experience emotion, the feelings, the negative polarity, because it makes you feel the positive emotions and polarity that much stronger. And the emotion and the feeling, it's like a drug. And everything is possible in the quantum unified field. Everything. So it's all happening at once, and everything is happening. Everything that you can imagine is happening in a reality. Everything. I know it's really hard to wrap your mind around, but that's how it works. And that's why the show's called Calm Your Crazy, because the things that I explain and the things that I know are the future. But now, they just sound crazy. So anyway, I hope that explains a little bit more for you. And I think I've tried to stop this episode like 3 times. Anyway, I will see you next week, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. Love you, mean it.